Now, 1 in every 4 Kenyans, 10,000 out of a possible of 100,000 Kenyans suffers from one form of mental illness or the other. This coming at a time where the recent mental law was just passed by the previous regime in June of 2022, with now a burden coming to the counties to look for ways to have this in their budget allocation, how to better deal with issues of mental illness and mental wellness altogether. This has been an ongoing conversation in our country, and right now we are set to converse around issues surrounding matters of mental wellness. I have created first time for the same with M.D Njiru, popularly known as M.D Njiru, who's an author and a speaker. His recent book, Prepsh, which just largely deals with what we're about to discuss, isn't it?
Sure.
But before we get to the book, just speak to me also just from what you've gathered over time as an author, a speaker, a mental health advocate. What are the key main forms of mental disorders we are dealing with in this country?
So, thank you, Doreen. So there are many forms of mental disorders or mental illness, but the most common one are anxiety and depression. Yeah, those are the most common ones.
Why is that?
I think it's because of the nature of life. Yeah, it's human nature to be anxious. So once in a while people be anxious, but at times it becomes like a lifestyle, and people now suffer from anxiety. Once in a while, stress is good. Once in a while people will be stressed, but now prolonged stress may lead to depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I was just about to ask you that you're saying stress is good. Who would say stress is good? But there's a caveat to that, as you're saying. Stress is good, but prolonged stress is what the problem is.
Yeah.
Before we get to the book again, Njiru, you have a personal story.
Yeah.
Just tease me a bit on that story.
Okay. So, you know, when they say that fiction, like when they say that material of thought imepotea. Sometimes fiction is stranger than non-fiction. Okay. So I think for my life story is a bit more strange than even fiction. So like I've been depressed, I've battled with anxiety, I've battled with suicidal thoughts. I once attempted suicide. Fortunately or unfortunately, it failed, and now I'm here.
How many times did you attempt suicide?
I just attempted once.
Once?
Yeah.
What exactly is this that had gotten you to the wall and you're like, this is it for me?
Okay.
What exactly was this?
You know, struggling is part of life.
Okay.
And struggling gives life a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose. But what happens when there is no end to it? What happens when there is no hope to it? So at that point in my life, I didn't have hope. My hope had been stifled. So that's why I was like, okay, one of the way out is through suicide.
It's through suicide.
Yeah.
We've had so many different scenarios, quite a number of them being attributed, especially when it comes to young people, on issues of unemployment.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that would make people, and young people to be very specific, lose hope in life. Was this the same case scenario for you?
Mine was a different case, but
different.
Related to employment.
Okay.
What was happening is that at that time in my life I was getting a job, but I couldn't maintain a job. So I was getting a job, I'm losing a job, I'm getting a job. It ends maybe sometimes with a court case, it ends in prison. So many stuff was happening. Then around this time, let me share this personal story. So around this time, I was getting to know this lady. She was a stranger, but I was getting to know her. Then she told me that her mom was a prophet, or is a prophet. She told me that her mom had a dream and a prophecy about my life. That every time I'm rising and falling, nasimama nikianguka, nasimama nikianguka, those were her words, with no end to it. So by then, I had been fired almost 5 times. I had lost like 8 jobs. I had been to prison. So I was like, what's the point? if I would stand and fall, stand and fall, stand and fall. I was like, no, I can't live like this. So at that point, that's when suicidal thoughts started entering my mind. I was like, okay, maybe this is an option. Yeah.
So you thought so.
Yeah.
But now you're saying, fortunately, because you are here to share a bit of that story.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, is this part of what birthed this book, Prepsh?
Yeah, part of that birthed this book, because at one point I had to reinterpret my story. Like that, I was standing and falling.
Yeah.
By 2019, I had been fired 9 times.
Okay.
9 times from employment. So I decided to reinterpret my story.
9 times is a span of how long?
Between 2011 to 2019.
Fired, gotten jobs 9 times, fired 9 times.
Yeah.
And wow, in this economy, it's hard to get a job.
It's easy to get a job, really.
You say?
It's easy to get a job.
Okay.
The challenge is, for me, it's to maintain a job. In fact, if you are willing to work, you'll get a job. Yeah, if you are really willing to work, jobs are there.
Okay, now I get what you're saying. Just don't be choosy. All right.
Yeah, don't be choosy.
I hear you. So then tell me more about the book. That part of what birthed the book is your personal story.
Yeah.
But then Prepsh, what's in the name?
So Prepsh is an acronym. It stands for, the first P stands for prayer. Like one of the things that have gotten me through the dark times is prayer. You know, even in the book, there's a part I've written that sometimes when you pray, like when Jesus prayed, the cup was not taken away from him, but he got the strength to drink from the cup.
So the challenge is still there.
The challenge is still there.
But to deal with it is now the strength that you get.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the grace.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right.
So P stands for prayer. R stands for reading. Yeah. I'm an advocate for people should read. And let me explain a bit about reading.
Yeah.
I was doing an analysis. I was studying the life of Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for how many years? Almost 27 years. 27 years behind bars is enough to make someone become depressed, is enough to make someone get suicidal. But this man never got suicidal, never got depressed. In fact, he left prison and he led that country. So what was unique, what did he used to do when he was behind bars? When you read the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, he used to read a lot when he was behind bars. So reading is one way of making someone to be in a better state of mind.
Okay.
Still on reading, there is this famous dancehall artist known as Vybz Kartel. He has been behind bars since 2010, 2011. He has been charged with murder. Story for another day. So the earliest time you can get parole is after that 5 years. Being behind bars can make him become depressed and all that. But when he was asked by a Fox TV reporter what keeps him in high spirit, he said that he reads a lot. So reading is one way of getting someone from a dark place. So the R is for reading. E is for eating. You know, we need to eat for us to function as human beings. So you eat healthy. Although in the book I've outlined more about it.
Okay.
The other is also for exercising.
All right.
The body, once the body is in motion, it's hard for it to be in a depressive state. So E stands for exercising. The other P is for purposeful living. Once you're living a life of purpose, Jim Rohn once said that purpose pulls someone forward despite the challenges. So that P is for purposeful living. The S is for schedule and sleeping. Yeah. So about schedule, there was a time last year I realized that I was working from home, and I realized that if I don't even schedule time maybe to bask for 10 minutes, a day it will pass by and another day without me having basked. So I realized that even the most basic things, you have to schedule for them.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the H stands for humor and help. Yeah. So those are the things that CREPS stands for.
I hear you. Let me just backtrace a bit. You did talk about purpose, and I just want to ask, do you think from where you sit, that is one thing that most, especially for us as young people, we really don't have that. Someone would ask you, what is your purpose? And you'd say, a journalist. That is what you're doing. That's not entirely your purpose. Someone will ask you, what is your purpose? And you say, I'm a banker. That is your job. Do you think sometimes not understanding what exactly who you are and what you're meant to do, such that when things get thick and life is so challenging, the quick thought is, how can I just exit this world? Is it one of the biggest problems, not understanding who we are, purpose?
I like that angle of question, because purpose gives life meaning. For example, way back in the last century, there was this famous photographer, Kevin Carter, the one who photographed the child that was about to die and be eaten by the vulture. You know?
Yes.
Unfortunately, Kevin Carter committed suicide.
After that shot.
After that shot and many other things that happened. He also used to cover the wars that were happening in Africa and all that. So it's because of the purpose and the interpretation. He was like, his interpretation in his suicidal thought, in his suicidal note, he was like, what happens when the pains of life override the joys of life, something of that sort. So he had not discovered his purpose, you know, because through him highlighting the stories now got attention and other people acted on it. But for him, he was like, okay, I'm highlighting all this, but there's nothing I'm doing about it. Like, he felt that he was not able to save that little girl. So once you have a purpose, you no longer become a journalist, you know? So you become a journalist who has a purpose. Once you have a purpose, you no longer become a teacher. You become a teacher who has a purpose. Once you have a purpose, you no longer become a politician. You're a politician who has purpose.
Well said. And Miles Monroe once said there's a difference between work and job. Your job feeds into your work. You do your job during the day, you work on your work at night, and that's what you live for. It is your purpose. We're about to sort of come to a close, MD, and I really want us to just, I actually want to get to your brain on basically what is happening around mental wellness. There was that law that was passed by the previous regime in June of 2022, looking at mental issues and mental wellness. Just the whole idea of it is that we can basically look deeper into issues of mental wellness, that any Kenyan who has any form of mental illness can be able to get into a hospital, both public and private, and can be able to get services, can get medical insurance, and just can be treated and get better care as far as these issues are concerned. Someone who has been through this, do you think from where you sit, having such policies, laws in place would at least help us in a form deal with matters of mental issues in this country? And to what end?
Yeah, so the policies, that's a step in the right direction. Though unfortunately in this country, what we have is not a policy issue, it's an implementation issue, even in other areas of life.
Okay.
But because there is a policy, that's a good thing, that's a start. Yeah, but also like what you're doing, you guys here, that's wonderful. The public needs to be educated more. Yeah. And also there need to be destigmatization of mental illness and
destigmatization. I hear you. And you think this is one of the biggest deterrents to dealing with mental cases? We stigmatize a lot.
You're stigmatized.
What really can we do? How can we even capacity build communities? Because it starts from where you stay in your area. That's actually where these things begin, even before we get to the upscaled level of the government and policies and structures, so to speak. How do we capacity build communities to understand that this, it's normal and it's okay not to be okay? You know, people fear what they don't understand. Yeah, like I know I once told several people I'm depressed, and they were like, Buddha, you don't They don't understand what this is. What's depression? Yeah, like they are like, get out of it.
it's like an on and off switch, like get out of it, you know. So people like we don't understand this thing. So anything that people don't understand, they shun it and they stigmatize it, you know. So people need to be like, whatever you're doing, just as I've said, people need to be educated more, and more people need to come out. Like, I'm not afraid to say that I've battled with depression, I've battled with anxiety, I've battled with suicidal thoughts, and now I'm here. So I'm sure, like, when I share my story, it will inspire someone else, and someone else, when they share their story, it will inspire another person.
Exactly.
Also, something else I would also want to urge the employers. Like, employees should not just be of benefit when they are productive. You know, like, most employees, if they say that they are maybe having mental issues, there's a high chance you'll even lose your job. You know. So employers also need to give a safe space for the employees. So this one goes, it's multi-sectoral, it cuts across. But also just tell me a bit about what you're doing in your own capacity. Now that you've talked about what people don't know, they are so easy to stigmatize and judge very quickly. What are you doing in terms of sensitization? Just for people to understand that actually mental issues exist, depression exists, anxiety exists. And this is how we can deal with it. What are you doing? So what I'm actually doing is that, one, I'm sharing my story through writing. You see? Another thing is that I recently, last year, started stand-up comedy. So anytime I go on stage, apart from making people laugh, I also come up with jokes that touch on mental illness and mental disorders. So people will laugh, but they'll go home knowing that this thing is not a taboo, you know. So I'm using
it's not a first world country issue.
It's not.
As you keep saying, isn't ugonjwa za watu kutoka
za majuu.
Yes. So you share this with people in a lighter way. In a lighter way. How's the reception?
People are embracing. People are slowly embracing. Alafu venye tumesema hizi vitu za first world pia zimefika third world, and people wanaona enyewe whatever happens in first world can also happen in
third world. So then, in terms of even this particular book, are you distributing it? Is it free that people can read? You know, some people actually say this is it's like a way of me giving back. Is this the case?
So initially this book had purpose to give it for free, and I'd even given it for free. Few people reached out for the book, and someone told me people don't value, and I'm sure he's watching, that person is watching. Thank you. So he told me that people don't value free things, so I decided to monetize the book. Also, another reason is because initially when I was giving it for free, I was giving it as a soft copy book, but most people were asking for hard copies. So saizi kimfuko yangu iko in a depressive state. So I can't afford to
give it for free,
publish and give it for free.
Okay.
But if kuna mtu ana watch and is ready to sponsor, to donate to other people, acha message ifike huko nje.
I hear you, and it's all for a good cause, as we are saying here. Thank you very much, MD, for your time, and just for also being very comfortable to share with us your story. Quite insightful. And that's also a good place for us to end this conversation. Of course, matters of mental wellness have formed ship for this last conversation this Wednesday morning, just looking at where we are as a country, particularly after this law was already passed as of June last year. And also right now we want to just put it to a cap and sit ground for Parliament coming in next, that is National Assembly. What we know definitely as part of what will form center of discussion in Parliament this morning is looking at the electricity cost and electricity prices, which was a motion that was proffered by the Laikipia woman representative, that is Jane Kagiri. Where we are in regards to that, looking at the fact that what she was saying, that indeed the Energy Ministry and Kenya Power did not enter in any agreement with IPPs until the matter is discussed, canvassed, and determined in Parliament. So that's where we are heading over at this particular point.